governor's turn to govern, and Republicans think they can take it away at the last minute. It seems unconstitutional to me.
It's a slap in the face to all the people who have been affected by Hurricane Helene.
Those were protesters outside North Carolina's state capitol expressing their outrage over the Hurricane Helene disaster relief bill that contains several controversial election provisions. Today, the state's legislature overrode Governor Roy Cooper's veto on the bill. State Board of Elections Executive Director Karen Brinson-Bell has said that the bill, quote, may make it impossible for the county boards of elections to adequately ensure every eligible ballot cast is counted, especially in high turnout elections. And David Becker is with us now. He's a CBS News election law expert and is the executive director for the Center for Election Innovation and Research. David, good to see you. Thanks for being here. So let's talk through this. Can you kind of walk us through what kind of impact this will have on voting access in North Carolina?
Yeah, so first of all, this is a very radical change in how North Carolina runs its elections, putting the election board under the authority of the state auditor. That would be the only state in the country that gives the state auditor that authority. To my knowledge, it might be the only state in the history of the United States that had given the state auditor that authority. The state auditor is the only Republican elected statewide when people went to vote for him in North Carolina this past November, just a few weeks ago. Nobody had any idea this office would have any authority over elections. If this individual, the state auditor, has authority over the state board, we could see a radical restructuring of the state board, of the 100 county boards. It could result in changing of staff. And this is particularly remarkable when we think about the success North Carolina just had. North Carolina ran an outstanding election with remarkable challenges that they overcame. We remember the hurricane and the chaos that created in several western counties. Those election officials in those western counties in North Carolina did a remarkable job. And they've had several really close elections. And the results of those elections have withstood the scrutiny that has been applied to them, even in the face of challengers trying to ask for recounts and challenging voters. So we've seen the North Carolina election system perform remarkably well, and this would potentially throw chaos into the mix.
And you alluded to this, but the state board has raised some major concerns. How difficult will it be to make it, how difficult will this be to count ballots?
Well, it's changed some of the rules around how those ballots are counted, how long voters have to, for instance, cure a ballot that might have an administrative flaw on the outside of the envelope if it's a mail ballot. It shrinks the amount of time that voters have and election officials have to fix ballots that might need some fixing. In other words, there is a date missing or a signature was missing or couldn't be matched for some reason, from 7 days down to 2.5. So we're shrinking that by about 2/3 that amount of time, and there's apparently no additional resources. So you're going to see election officials having to do the same amount of work in 1/3 of the amount of time, which is going to be a tremendous challenge for them, again, after they just saw so much success in the 2024 cycle.
And what was kind of the motivation behind this bill?
So it's hard to assess what the exact motivation is, but this bill was not an elections bill. We're in the lame duck session right now, where the Republican supermajority that can theoretically override a veto of the Democratic governor, that's about to go away in the next session. And this bill was supposed to be a hurricane relief bill. And what the governor has said, and what many others who have experienced the damage from the hurricane have said, is this bill in the first place didn't provide enough relief. The governor asked for nearly 5 times as much money as was in this bill to help those who have suffered as a result of the hurricanes. And I think that's one of the reasons he vetoed it. But instead, they've stuck this radical restructuring of the North Carolina election system into this bill, presumably because they know they couldn't get it done in a regular session next year when they no longer have the supermajorities. And they've given it to the only Republican statewide officer in the state, rather than giving it, for instance, to the Secretary of State of North Carolina, which is one of the few states where the Secretary of State has no election authority. But that happens to be a Democrat in the state of North Carolina. So that they decided apparently not to do that. So it looks like this is kind of a last-minute power grab by a supermajority in the supermajority of Republicans in the state legislature, rather than focusing on what apparently the bill was supposed to be, which was a hurricane relief bill.
And is there any kind of mechanism that you could challenge this legislation?
Well, I'm sure there will be some court cases. The Supreme Court in North Carolina is controlled right now by a Republican majority. Unclear whether or not that would they would uphold that. I'm unclear whether or not there's something that could violate North Carolina state law in this bill. It should be noted that one of those very close races I mentioned was a North Carolina state Supreme Court race where the Democrat won by just over 700 votes over the Republican candidate. The Republicans would still be a majority regardless of the outcome of that race on the North Carolina Supreme Court.
All right, we will keep an eye on all of this, as I know you will too. David Becker, thank you so much.
Thanks, Kayla.